The gut influences the brain. So diet was huge. So gluten and dairy, absolutely huge. And not reducing dairy, gluten, absolutely eliminating it. So we removed gluten, and I'd go to school. If they were having pizza day at school, I'd make something at home and get myself over there. I was blessed to have a flexible job that I could do that. So gluten was huge. Dairy was really huge. He was, we found out, almost addicted to dairy. Casein protein can actually turn to opioids in the brains of some of these kids. And so literally would throw a tantrum if he wasn't getting his glass of milk. And so that's a sure sign that there's some sort of addiction there. So we cut out dairy altogether, no cheese, none of that. And so he was drinking almond milk, unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk. And then everything was pretty much made from scratch.
Hi, it's Kate Brownfield from ADHDkidscanthrive.com, and this is the ADHD Kids Can Thrive podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all of your support. Make sure you check out the link at ADHDkidscanthrive.com to see what I am up to. I am the host of this podcast, but I am also an ADHD coach that teaches classes to parents and groups, and I also do one-on-one coaching. I'm also an author of a book, and I am the parent of my own ADHD kids. Welcome. Okay, so let's dive in for our guest today. I am honored to be joined by Emma Tekstra. She's a global health consultant, actuary, and author of How to Be a Healthy Human. When her older son was diagnosed with Asperger's and ADHD 15 years ago, together with various gastrointestinal complaints and poor immunity, Emma didn't settle for the recommendations and poor prognosis of her conventional pediatricians. She used her scientific background to research the root cause of his ill health and rewrite his future and her own. She is now an advocate for taking control of her own health and that of her family. Emma speaks out on skyrocketing health problems of the next generation and how parents can transform their kids' health with simple strategies. Please enjoy our conversation. Hi, Emma. Thank you for joining me. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you today. I'm really curious about your story and your advocacy going forward.
Okay, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's just kind of start from the beginning. And if you could share with us how your life changed, I think it was around 15 years ago on your parenting journey.
Yeah. So my older son's nearly 20. He's a sophomore in college now, and then I got a younger son who's 18. But yeah, 15 years ago, my older son was diagnosed with Asperger's and ADHD at age 5.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a shock. I mean, he'd been a sickly kid. He'd had a lot of problems as a kid. 6 months old, he was even on medication for gastrointestinal problems, lots of ear infections, but his behavior got worse as he was getting older. So he had obsessive compulsive, he would freak out at the slightest thing. And then basically at 5, his kindergarten asked me to get him evaluated. So we went through the whole psychologist, 6 visits, whatever it was. And I have to say, I wasn't surprised just through my background knowledge when he got that diagnosis. But yeah, it did rock my world though, because it was kind of like there in black and white. And initially, I actually took a leave of absence from work. I still work in the corporate world. I had a very intense corporate job. I'm an actuary by background, so I'm very about data and analysis, but I work with employers on their employee benefits. And at the time, mainly in the area of pension plans and things around the world. But I took 2 months off, and I really just wanted to observe him. What were the difficulties? How was he getting on in school? Just kind of to understand what was going on and start doing the research to just kind of get my head around this. What the doctors were telling me one thing, and I'm reading something else to figure all that out. And then when I went back to work, all the stuff I'd learned, I wanted to apply that then in my work. So I became more focused on healthcare and wellness, so corporate wellness, employees' wellness and well-being. And that's only grown over the years.
Yeah, okay. So did you start to put your professional life together with what you were learning in your personal life?
Not completely, because you're working for a big corporate, there's things that have to be done, but it was always my passion. And I was always doing that in the background. And then when COVID came along, it was completely reignited some of that. And then, I eventually left the corporate world last year, wrote the book. And but yes, that was the diagnosis of my son really, really changed my life big time.
Yeah.
For the better.
Good. Same. That's all I have to say. Same here.
Yes.
Okay, so you did touch a little bit on gastro problems, earaches, and then he shows up in kindergarten, right? And the teachers are saying there's something going on here. Over time, kind of how did you put that out? Were all those things connected to your son's overall health, right? And
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about like, when he was 5, did you put all of those pieces together yourself? Like, how did that all come together for you in your own personal journey of realizing these aren't just like separate silo diagnoses that aren't affecting each other? How did you
Yeah, I mean,
come
it's
along
true
on
from
that
my own
journey?
research, but I have to say, so our regular pediatrician, and I love her to this day. Both my sons, went for their well visits up right up to college, but she was sort of didn't really have too much to offer us other than psychiatrists and gastroenterologists. And so I sought out some other kind of help, and I actually worked with Dr. Jerry Cartzenall for a year or two, who is a pretty well-known pediatrician who specializes in neurodiverse kids. And so it was him that really told me and educated me.
Oh, I've never heard that name before.
Oh gosh, look him up. He wrote a great book with Jenny McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah, many of
And
us.
is he in SoCal, Southern California?
So at the time, he was in Southern California and he had an office right, near where I worked. And that was fantastic. But with all the laws changing in California, he had to leave California. And so his office is now in Florida. And I believe he's actually moving to Tennessee, but he sees patients all over the world.
Okay.
Yeah, he's absolutely phenomenal.
And what's his proper education? Is he a
He's a pediatrician.
psychiatrist? Oh, he's a pediatrician.
He's been a completely regular MD pediatrician for years and years and years. And his story is he has 5 kids. And his 5th kid, he gave him the MMR vaccine and the kid became completely autistic within, a matter of weeks. And his wife said to him, "You broke him, you fix him." And he
Okay.
changed his whole outlook. So that's
Okay, and now he helps other kids who go
Yeah,
through the same journey.
But he's big. He's got a big practice. He speaks at conferences all over the world. He's wonderful. And so we just happened to be blessed that he was down the road from us. And and we've stayed in touch to this day because he's just a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And so he educated me. And so over those first few months at age 5, yeah, the lights are going on and I'm reading everything I could get my hands on. And now I'm completely understanding. I mean, the health of the brain is dependent on the health of the whole body, especially the gut, but the whole body. And so the strategies we can get into, the strategies he started with was really the health of his gut and his body and what was going on.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's just touch about the pediatrician. So how do you recommend a parent who may not have access to the medical community that you did, right? You just have your pediatrician. Okay. What's your recommendation for like advocating and navigating and teaming up with the pediatrician to try to like bring the right pieces together to improve your child's overall health?
Yeah, and it depends on who your pediatrician is, right? I
Right.
hope that they're open-minded, some know more than others, and hopefully the pediatrician wants to be in partnership with you. A lot of them do. They all mean well, but some of them are going to be more open to a partnership rather than dictating, "I'm the person in the white coat and I'm going to dictate what you should do." And if it's that kind of relationship, I would suggest finding another pediatrician. They don't need to know everything, but they do need to see the relationship as a partnership because the pediatrician is a human being. They've done a certain mode of study. They have a certain toolkit and that's what they know. But the human body is incredibly complicated and every child is different. Every child is an individual. You have a different genetic makeup, microbiome makeup, culture. Everything is completely different. So you can't expect that doctor to know everything that you need to know. And I talk to adults about this as well. So it's very important that you have an open relationship with the doctor. You use them for diagnosis and you get their opinion, certainly. They obviously know a lot, but then you do your own research and you trust your intuition. You've got to trust your intuition. And our bodies are divinely created. If you have listeners who are that way inclined, and I believe that a mother is in tune with their child and might not understand all of the aspects of the human body that the doctor might, but understands their child.
Right.
It does. So it's got to be a partnership.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about kind of the strategies that you used for your child that help them. What's the outcome of your child? He is in college.
He's doing phenomenal. Yeah.
He's doing great.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's amazing. He probably wouldn't even get a diagnosis today. He's quirky. He's an introvert, but he's doing amazingly. He's in a 4-year college. He's studying mechanical and aerospace engineering. Super smart. Got an amazing girlfriend who's super sweet and puts up with him. Loves him, and he's doing really, really well. But all the different strategies through the years, and actually once he got to college, he backslid a little bit. I saw some things coming out once he had left home. He's in another state. So he doesn't have the buffers around him that I sort of
support,
around him and all the support. But he's doing phenomenally, absolutely phenomenally.
Okay, so walk us through. I'm really curious about the strategies you use.
Yeah, and it's a lot over 15 years, right? So let me start early ones and kind of where we started. I think where we started was the gut health, because the gut influences the brain. So diet was huge. So gluten and dairy, absolutely huge. And not reducing dairy, gluten, absolutely eliminating it. I mean, I was so careful. And I told you, I had a corporate job. I was actually a single parent at that time of 2 boys. So I was busy, but it was so important. And everything that I read, the health of their brain for that first 10 years of life is really going to impact the whole of the rest of their years.
Yeah.
Their first 18 years. So I knew I wanted to get as much fixed as quickly as possible. So I went a little gung-ho. But so we removed gluten, and I'd go to school. If they were having pizza day at school, I'd make something at home and get myself over there. I was blessed to have a flexible job that I could do that. So gluten was huge. Dairy was really huge. He was, we found out, almost addicted to dairy. Casein protein can actually turn to opioids in the brains of some of these kids. And so literally would throw a tantrum if he wasn't getting his glass of milk. And so that's a sure sign that there's some sort of addiction there. So we cut out dairy altogether, no cheese, none of that. And so he was drinking almond milk, unsweetened almond milk or coconut milk. And then everything was pretty much made from scratch. I really didn't do any of the processed stuff. We cut out processed food, cut out all the food dyes. And I'm sure your listeners all know all of that stuff. Terrible, but I was really, really on all of that. So Halloween, I'd switch it out for, other kinds of fruit-colored candies if they even were allowed candy. But I was very, very careful with what they eat. I was militant about what he would eat in particular. So food was the biggest. And food, you've got to include drink in there as well. So never drank soda. My kids to this day don't drink soda of any kind. So water, we just drink plain water all the time. So food, supplements. So the other big one is supplements, because a lot of the time they're nutrient deficient. And even if you switch over to a whole foods diet right away, they're not catching up, and they need it for their brain development. So he was on quite a few supplements in those early years. One I like to talk about and just say I have no ties to this company at all, but there's a company in Canada called True Hope. You can go to truehope.com, and they specialize in brain health. And they have a formula that is 36 different vitamins and minerals and amino acids specifically for brain health. And they get people off, heavy duty medications, getting them on the
Yeah, I think I researched that one, and it's one capsule.
That's the thing. So thinking now is an adult, but they do a powder formulation if you've got young kids. So when my son started on it in the powdered formula, and he'd have it in a milkshake, and then, because this is going back a number of years, at one point he was having to take 4 of them a day, 4 capsules a day. And now they have this phenomenal one that is 1 a day. And so he has no excuse. He can get 1 down a day.
He can go,
phenomenal. So multivitamin of some kind is very important. Probiotics is the other one that's very important for gut health and to help the microbiome. So I'd mentioned my son had a lot of ear infections, and he'd had a lot of rounds of antibiotics before I knew any better. And he's not had a single pharmaceutical since the age of 5, by the way, except for 1 round of ibuprofen when he had his wisdom teeth out. He had it for 1 day and that was it. So no antibiotics whatsoever. There's natural remedies, but it had decimated his microbiome, decimated it. And he had a lot of constipation, and so that was an issue. And so we were taught that, that's your toxin detoxifier, toxin elimination. So your child's bathroom habits are really important to look at. So he was actually given, and I don't necessarily think I would do this again, knowing what I know now, but at the time he was given
Miralax.
Miralax.
Yeah,
I know a lot of pediatricians will say this, and even this wonderful one who I love probably still does this to this day. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I think there's other better strategies. But for my son, we did Miralax for probably only about 3 months, but every day for about 3 months till he was eating better and getting through that stuff. But it's very important that going to the bathroom every day and getting that.
Okay, and paying attention to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So probiotics for healing the gut. L-theanine, very good for the brain, as an amino acid. So he was taking that. And then his immunity was terrible. That's with all the ear infections and stuff. So he was on zinc. He was taking liquid zinc as well. I think he was on so a whole bunch of nutrients depending on what he was deficient in. So food and supplements were definitely number one.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds pretty simple, like when I'm just talking to you, right? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but it is, you are pointing out how nutrition plays a huge role
Yeah.
in your health, in someone's health, and then and the right supplement plan, right, can really improve things. And did you find that your son's mood improved as his overall health improved? Did he ever
That
have
took a
like
while. Yeah, he had a
some
lot of
dysregulation?
anxiety. So the
Yeah.
Asperger's diagnosis, that side of him, and those two things work against each other. So he had a double whammy, poor guy. But yeah, his mood was tough. He was, I would say, now depressed. He would talk about wanting to die. It breaks my heart to say this now.
Would he say that at age 5? Or when you
Probably
kind of older?
not. 5, 6. Well, interestingly, I just had a friend over helping me fix something the other day, and on the wall in the bathroom, is a little face that he drew when he was 3, and it's 2 eyes, a round face, 2 eyes, and a sad face, and a cloud on the. He's very highly intelligent. My son is
Yeah.
highly intelligent, but even then, he might have not been able to express himself, but he had dark thoughts. Yeah, even then. And so that was hard. And so definitely.
Poor baby did not feel good, right?
Yeah, right. So that was tough. So it took a bit of time because he also didn't understand the world. He had a lot of sensitivities to sound and to touch and things like that. And so getting to the bottom of all of those.
Did you do sensory therapy with him?
Yeah. So if we want to get into some of those other therapies, I
Okay.
did a lot of different stuff with him. So one of the things he did occupational therapy. So yeah,
Okay.
so in a gym, and what worked for him was heavy work, working his muscles. And so he slept under a weighted blanket.
But yeah. Yeah.
That helped him, just calmed him. And heavy work. And to this day, he's a gym rat. He has to go to the gym every day. And as a young adult now, he knows if he's feeling bad and he's overwhelmed, he needs to get to the gym and pump iron. So that was important from a young age. I had him, everything I did for him, I did for my younger son too. And my younger son is super healthy, no issues whatsoever, but we all work together. He would lift weights. So getting ready in the morning, age 6 years old, I had him lifting weights when he was getting dressed. And the school, bless them, because I had to work with his school. He was in a very small school, some strategies because he couldn't sit still for a minute and he could be disruptive. So one of the strategies was if he was being a little disruptive in class, the teacher would say, "Hey, Ethan, can you take this pile of books to the office for me?" And they'd give him a big pile of heavy books and he'd have to carry them to the office to calm him down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So heavy weighted stuff. But
Yeah.
the occupational therapy, she taught him, and it was specialized for these kinds of kids, taught him how to calm his engine. So cardio tend not to be good for him. So running on a treadmill, very bad, makes things worse. So yeah, anything that's really working out his muscle
Okay.
or push-ups or something like that. And it taught him to recognize what was going on in his body and sort of alleviate that. So occupational therapy. We did neurofeedback. So I don't know if you talked about that on the show before, but I can't say enough good things about neurofeedback. So it's very intense. He had to go at least twice a week for about a year. And they sit there for an hour, maybe even 2 hours with like electrodes on his head. And it basically rewires the brain. And so that was really revolutionary. I saw a lot of change in him. To start with, they were kind of working on the hyperactivity and the focus and those kinds of things for about 6 months. And then the second 6 months was working on his social skills. And they were working on his brain and it improved his social skills somehow. So that was phenomenal. And to see the change.
And did he do all of this under the age of 10?
Yeah, definitely. Between the age of 5 and 10. So
10.
those 5 years, we were every 6 months, we'd sort of review and we'd do something else. And it was consuming. I mean, it consumed my life. I kind of feel bad for my younger son that they got dragged along to some of this. But it was important because I'd also read, and a lot of the research, the brain is extremely plastic up to the age of 10. 7 is sort of optimal, but 10. And after 10, any changes are going to be harder to make. Not that they won't. I mean, adults can do neuro.
Right. We can always, right. We can
Absolutely.
always evolve. Yeah. But there's the high impact is under 10.
Absolutely. But also for a child, especially going into high school, you want to do as much as they can because of the trajectory of their life. You want to, I wanted him in a better place as quickly as possible. He was struggling in school. He's very intelligent, and now he's like an amazing straight A student. But at the time, he could barely even get through a class. He'd forget to hand things in. He didn't understand things. He had dyspraxia, kind of couldn't organize himself, a lot of problems. And the neurofeedback really sought to improve that. So I think he was about 7, maybe 8, going on to 8 when he did that. Another strategy that's phenomenal I'd recommend is Linda Mood Bell.
Oh, yes.
Program.
Yeah. Yes.
Phenomenal. So one of the problems my son had when he was that sort of age, 6, 7, 8, he couldn't tell me what he did in school. How was your day? He couldn't tell me what he did. He couldn't read. He just got bored with reading. And what they diagnosed was that he couldn't make pictures in his mind. So if somebody asked you a question, how was your day? You would you'd get a picture in your mind about, I had lunch with a friend, or I, played this sport, and you would then describe it. Well, he wasn't making those pictures. Or you read a book and you read the words and you make a picture in your brain and you're engaged because you're reading and you're making a picture in your brain. And he wasn't. So we did Linda Movell one summer, insanely.
It's really intense.
Every single day for like 6 hours or something every day. And he sat with one teacher. It was expensive. I know a lot of people can't afford it. But I think there's ways that a parent can get trained in some of the skills. So he did that, and that was revolutionary. So that was just a 3-month program, and he could read. Suddenly he became a bookworm, and he was reading crazily, and now he could tell me things, what was going on, and that really helped him. In many ways. It helped to engage him, because they've got to be engaged, and even other strategies that I did at home, he had to always be doing something. So I would give him chores to do. We'd do gardening. I always had a project for him. I was super busy, but I'd give him a project to do, and that would keep him engaged. And when he was engaged with something that interested him, he could focus.
He could stay. You're a very committed mother. He's very lucky.
Yeah. I love boys. I'm a boy mom, and I loved a lot of, I'm kind of blessed that I love a lot of what they love, I love.
Yeah.
And some I've learned too. My younger son's a pilot and not loving going out on the small plane, but yeah. But into bugs, he was into bugs, not really loving the bugs, but it's so much fun to see what they're into and stuff. And Lego is another wonderful, girls or boys. Lego was phenomenal. The more complex, the better. Model planes. Anything that they can engage their brains and have to focus on, but it's got to be, schoolwork's kind of boring. So you got to find something that will engage them that might be a little bit difficult for them. I would just give him, whatever Lego. He might be 6 years old, and I'd give him a Lego for 11 plus and just kind of see how he got on with it.
Yeah. And he could sustain his attention on that absolutely. Because he was interested in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious then, your kids are old enough that that technology was a thing for them.
Yeah.
Right? They're the first generation where really the iPhones came into play. Social media came along for them in high school and probably junior high. Okay, so how did you parent your teenage boys through that time, and how did you use technology in your home?
Yeah, looking back, I would do it differently. I'd be even stricter, but we were the cusp, right? So my kids early 20s. So I think we had a pact with the parents. Nobody got a phone till they were 12. So my kids got a phone at 12. So before 12, it was a non-issue. They didn't use technology. If they needed to do something on a computer, it was in my office downstairs. They didn't have TVs or computers or anything in their room. So I think that was easier back then. So at age 12, the reason why my older kid got one was because he had social difficulties. He was then coming home and saying, well, everybody else in the class has a cell phone, and they're all talking to each other. And so I actually reasoned that—
Which is what every kid around the world says, regardless of their—
It is true, but in this case, and would I do it differently? I don't know. I might do it differently, but for him, it breaks your heart when they come home, especially a kid that has difficulties with social skills anyway. So I relented. He got it, and it did help him because he did start to connect a little bit, because he's difficult in person, like hard to make eye contact and hard to hold a conversation with you. But on the phone, he's chatty. You should see the texts I get. We always know if my son is texting me, my one that's away in college, because it's never one ping. It's 4 pings in a row.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
very comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable typing, and words and all of that works better than him verbally. So actually for him, that was okay. But I was very strict. So the phone stayed downstairs. They weren't allowed upstairs at all, not in their bedrooms, certainly not in the bathroom when they were older, but not in their bedrooms. So phones stayed downstairs. They were charged downstairs overnight, obviously not at dinner tables. So I was very strict about it, when they could have them, not after a certain time at night. And even in high school, even when they were older, and I had access to the phones. So 12, 13, 14, I only relinquished access to their phone. So I could look at any time to see who they were texting and what they were texting. And they didn't have for so long, I'm remembering now, I wouldn't let them have some of the apps. There's one that I finally relented when they were 18. I forget what it's
Like a social media.
Snapchat.
Oh,
Snapchat.
yeah.
Yeah. So they didn't have any of that. They basically had texts, and that's all they were allowed until they were 18. And at 18,
Did you let them be on Instagram or
no, they were. It wasn't.
TikTok?
As I say, it's a few years ago now.
I know, that's true. Yeah.
Not that many years ago. And they're boys. I think girls are more into Instagram, but they're on Instagram now very much. So actually, no. Okay, my younger son is very heavy on Instagram, so he must have started maybe at 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was on.
So you pushed it off as long as you could with the social media and all of that.
Yeah.
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 Help their brains develop.
Yeah, because I think all that time, and now I have to say, and I talked to my son about it in college more as a coach. I obviously don't tell him off. He is addicted to his phone. And I don't like to see it. And his girlfriend tells him off. It's quite funny. He's because that instant gratification, it pings something in their brain that they need. These ADHD kids, it's like,
Yeah.
constant focus and something's pinging. And so I see him when he's home or when I'm with him, he's constantly on his phone and doing something. And so I coach him now about that. And I worry about it. I think it's sad. And when he's been having a tough time because at some periods of time, he's gotten overwhelmed with classes and things, we've had to sort of look at some strategies. And one of them was, you need to put your phone down, put it in the other room, and go for a walk across campus without your phone on you. Don't take your phone to the gym. Because he'd go to the gym and he'd do one rep and then he'd sit on his phone for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We did the next one.
Yeah, while he's resting, his muscles are whatever.
Right. So yeah, so it's sad. I think I might be more strict if I did it all again, but I did the best I could.
Yeah. Yes, as we all do. Okay. And then I think you touched on, we went over nutrition and tech and pharmacy. You did a lot of natural remedies.
Yeah.
And it worked for you. And I am curious though, as you held your boys to like a strict diet, how did that work as they became teenagers? Right? With the peer pressure?
Yeah. So my older son is very rebellious. So my younger son is insanely healthy. He's a gym rat. He's an Eagle Scout. So he went through Scouts where I did the healthy cooking class. I was a leader and I was in charge of the cooking merit badge. So everybody had to get past me and my class before I would sign them off. So I would teach them. I have a class actually on my website that is teaching teenagers about healthy nutrition. He eats more healthy than me, my 18-year-old. My nearly 20-year-old, the ADHD kid, became extremely rebellious when once he got social friends at like 17. He was like a slow developer, but 17 and 18 were exceedingly difficult in my house. And he would basically eat whatever he wanted. He was out. He was back on gluten, back on dairy. He had some health issues. He had really bad acne. And then first year at college, he was doing the best he could, but he was in a dorm and he was eating cafeteria food and just kind of trying to figure out college. Well, now as a sophomore, it's actually very interesting. He's in an apartment and he's cooking for himself. He's become a cook. He's become this great cook. He is completely gluten-free now. He's exceedingly careful. He makes food before he goes places. He's really into cars and racing cars. Before he'll go to a car meet where they have the trucks and food trucks, he makes his food. He'll make something.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing gluten-free sandwiches he makes. He cooked a whole octopus one day. And he'll text me, do I use olive oil or coconut oil with this? Crazy. So yeah, we had a couple of years where it was very difficult. He sort of fell off the wagon and was eating pretty bad and very rebellious and in all sorts of ways, but he's come full circle.
Okay. So you're making the case too that it's worth planting the seeds, right? When your kids are younger.
Yeah.
And even if they rebel.
Yeah.
In those teenage years, those seeds are still planted.
Yeah.
And they come full circle in time.
And I think they see the difference. Because I think he could see that when he was eating bad, he felt worse.
Yeah.
And his acne was worse and everything was worse. And so I think he learned through experimenting. They got to learn for themselves at that age.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. So Emma, tell us a little bit about your book, which is about how to be healthy, which is for adults, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to include a chapter on kids, but I had so much information, it was already, 300 pages. So I'm actually in the middle of a second book that is focused on kids. But the first book,
okay.
Yeah. So the first book, I wanted to provide all the context because I found education really understanding, especially for my son. Now, when I talk to him, I'm educating him. So the first half of the book, I call the foundation. So it's explaining a little bit how the human body works. It explains about the healthcare industry, it explains about genes versus lifestyle. lifestyle, a whole chapter on nutrition and just really understanding it and sort of being able to understand the headlines. Are eggs good for you or bad for you? Really, it's really whole foods are what your body needs. And so I talk about nutrition. I got a whole chapter on toxins, all different kinds of toxins. And then the second half of the book is on different health issues so that you can understand all ill health is connected, whether it's a brain issue, whether it's a stomach issue, whether it's a autoimmune, cancer, heart disease. I cover diabetes. I cover, so I cover infectious disease in a chapter and coughs, cold, flu and all of that. And then I cover the chronic conditions. I have a whole chapter on mental health. And so how to get to the root cause of what is causing, not only ADHD and those kinds of things and schizophrenia and anxiety and depression, but Alzheimer's and dementia. It's all connected.
Right.
So that's mental health. And then, the last chapter is on healthy aging. And then I just didn't have room for the one about raising kids. So my second book is called How to Raise a Healthy Human. And that's going to be all 0 to 18 and these strategies for our kids.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so you've shared a lot, Emma. I love your enthusiasm, and I actually love all the insights that you've shared. So if a parent, let's say this podcast is focused on parents, right?
Right.
What words of wisdom would you have, regardless of how old their child is, right? So some may have a kid who's 5, but what if they're listening and their child's like 14 or 15 years old, right? Is it too late?
Yeah.
How do they implement these changes?
Yeah.
If they're just awakening to the fact that, wow, nutrition really can make a positive impact. It may not solve all their child's problems, right, as you've kind of alluded, but it can definitely be beneficial in big
Absolutely,
ways.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, don't focus on the label. I think that would be my biggest takeaway. I talk a little bit in the book about labels and where labels came from, especially mental health type labels, ADHD, or Asperger's. What are those labels? So don't focus on the label and say, "Oh, I've got a kid with ADHD." Focus on the health, the overall health of the body. And it's never too late to start. Even 18 years old and you're getting them trained to go off to college, it's never too late to start. So nutrition is absolutely number one, and teach them a little bit about how nutrition can impact your health.
Yeah. Okay. And then in your book, do you talk about the supplements? Not the.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
do?
yeah.
Okay.
No, all throughout it, I talk about different modalities. I mean, that's one of my key takeaways from the book is there's not only one way. And a conventional healthcare approach is one way. It's the standard of care. You're given a label and there's a certain amount of pharmaceuticals that are open that the doctor can prescribe. And what I'm trying to get across is there's umpteen different modalities, and I talk about all the different ones, and you need to pick what's going to work for you and your child, depending on what they're interested in, what their particular symptoms are, maybe what their label is, and see what works for you, and you can mix and match, and I talk very personally, a lot of anecdotes. But so even if we just talk about supplements, I give examples of supplements. I've got a whole resources section at the back. One is, things like good brands of supplements. So avoid the gummies. Don't go to Costco and grab some gummies. That's not really going to do anything. So high quality supplements, so brands, and I have completely independent. I don't have any ties, but all of brands, but then all other websites that have natural ways of healing, even brain health, other doctors. So Dr. Daniel Amen.
Yes.
He's very well known. So he's national, and it could be kind of expensive. Might not be able to afford to go to one of his clinics, but he has a lot on his website.
Yeah.
His books. I have a whole further reading section. So I have a lot of practical strategies and actual supplements and even dosages and things that can help in different circumstances.
Okay, good. That's very helpful for parents.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Emma. I appreciated this conversation.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right.